Servus Männer, it's Red Bull Germany again. Today I want to tell you a little bit about the recent scandal in Germany that could in fact destabilize Germany even further, as if we didn't have enough problems already. I am talking about the budget crisis of 2023 that we are in right now, or that we just are experiencing, and which means that there is no budget for next year, and even the budget for this year is illegal in my eyes, shaky at best, and I will try to explain to you the shady tricks that our government is using and has used in the past also already in order to go into more debt. Why is that even a scandal? Governments go into debt all the time. Well, the German constitution, or our basic law, our Grundgesetz, it has a very interesting part that is called die Schuldenbremse, the debt brake, or something that limits debt. And that means, well, I don't want to go into the details, but that means that the new debt that Germany goes into in a current fiscal year shall be limited, by GDP or whatever. Like you cannot go into arbitrary amounts of debt. That is what this part of our constitution says, and there is a way around it, of course. And that is if there is a special crisis or some kind of dangerous situation that is not within the control of the politicians, which means that they cannot create that crisis themselves. It must be a higher power, really. And that is of course, they argued in 2020 and 21 and 22 that the Chinese pestilence, the China bug, that was this higher power crisis which allowed them to go around this restriction on debt on the federal level, but also in general in Germany. Well, now this crisis has officially been declared over and solved, or and that is why this is no longer good in 2023 in order to accumulate more debt. But as you know, we are spending a lot of money on the Middle East, on Eastern Europe, and we have all these new guests here to house and to feed and to clothe. And of course, we're going into massive amounts of debt. So how are they doing that? Well, they did something really sneaky, and that is they took the debt that was reserved for dealing with the China bug, and they just funneled that into, or they just restructured that into their economic subsidy programs and their green energy programs and their weapons programs, and partially they did that, but for the weapons programs for Ukraine, they also created something they called Sondervermögen, which means special wealth or special assets. And all that this Sondervermögen is new debt. They just created, or they just made up a fancy name for debt, which is special asset. Of course, this is just debt, nothing else. And it's completely illegal to do that, to just come up with a new word and say, now we don't have to care about the constitution anymore because we don't call it debt anymore. We have a new word for it now, right? This is all that they did. And now our constitutional court, the Bundesverfassungsgericht, they declared that illegal. And that means that the budget for this year is also unconstitutional. That means at least 60 billion euros cannot be used, and they have to come up with this somewhere else. And also there are more than some questions are raised about other parts of the budget, other packets and structural parts of our budget. And So the government just went around this once again by declaring, and I kid you not, they declared a crisis case for 2023 in Germany. And if you remembered what I said in the beginning, it must be a crisis that is not in the control of the politicians. And I wonder now, what crisis should that be? And they really said that, yeah, Ukraine, but but is that really a crisis for Germany? Not really, I think. The politicians could have denied those migrants, and they could have denied the Ukraine weapons, and that means whatever strain there is on our budget, it is completely within the control of the politicians to stop that and to say we're not paying this. No, so it's not a higher power in that sense. And then, and this is really funny, they said that there was a flood, and I reported about that in 2021. I think in the Ahrtal, it was disastrous for the people involved, for a couple of villages, I think, for a certain area. It was really disastrous, and they're still trying to rebuild their houses, but they declared that a nationwide crisis that requires now to go around the constitution. So to disregard the constitution because there was a flood in a tiny river. Admittedly, for the people who live there, it was disastrous, and I reported about this. So you can check out my videos on that. There was looting by you know who even, and but something that happened 2 years ago, they used that in order to break the constitution this year, and it was a rather small scale flood. It was severe, but it was only in a couple of places. That is not a nationwide tragedy or crisis. So this is the state of the German regime right now. They're really desperate for money, and as soon as they get their hands on a couple of billions, they just send it to people abroad, or they give it right away to the migrants in the form of the Bürgergeld, the citizens' money, which is just migrant money, because most of the people who receive that form of welfare most of the people are in fact migrants and not Germans. So that is what's going on right now, and they couldn't really go completely around it. They couldn't mitigate the damage in question mark or in quotation marks for our regime completely, because this ruling of the Constitutional Court is really severe. It is really a major constraint for our politicians, for the regime here. And what I'm trying to say is they will, one way or another, with all the tricks they want to play, all these dirty tricks to go into more debt even, they cannot go around cutting parts in the budget here and there. And either they must say to Ukraine, we cannot send more weapons, or they must say we will not pay for the migrants anymore that much, or they must take away welfare or subsidies for Germans. And I don't know if you have any idea how the general mood in the general population is right now in Germany. It's not that great. They are very dissatisfied with the government in Berlin. The AfD in a certain nationwide poll has scored 26%. That's an all-time high. More than a quarter of the voters would vote for AfD. Well, that was one poll, but even on average, they're around 22% and consistently over 20. And the popularity of the current ruling parties, the SPD, the FDP, and the Green Party, is absolutely in the toilet, and they're getting really nervous. They're trying to consider banning the party now, for example. They're getting really, really nervous, and I just think that, especially going into the next year, where we still don't have a budget, There will be cuts. There will be definitely cuts. It will be uncomfortable. A lot of people are losing their jobs already. And at a time like this, they will be forced to cut welfare spending one way or another. And I'm really curious to see how it will turn out, if we will have new elections, if the government will even survive the next 6 months. They clearly broke the constitution, and the yeah, our constitutional court said the budget is illegal. This form of special asset that you created, 200 billion for the military, basically, that is illegal. And I think when you take all these special assets together, you come up with €1 trillion, I think, or something. It's crazy. And all this is basically debt that's off the books. It's not officially counted as debt. And this is the trick they've been playing for the last years. And now the jig is up, at least when it's according to the Constitutional Court of Germany, which is the highest legal institution after all. Let's just see. I will keep you posted. But that is, in a sense, it's good news for the AfD, because it makes the normies, the centrists, and the some part of the liberal spectrum of Germany, it makes them very discontent, and maybe causes some of them to vote for the AfD, but causes some of them not to vote at all. And that will benefit the AfD, then of course, relatively. All right, so this is my little update on this budget situation, the unconstitutional, illegal budget that they tried to, or that they actually implemented, and that they didn't get away with now. And I also hinted at the new tricks they want to play. This flood that we had 2 years ago. And one last thought. I made a video in 2020 already, I think, where I told you, I predicted that our governments will require a constant state of crisis, a never-ending crisis, or every year another crisis, in order to just normally rule a country. You will not be able to rule a Western country anymore, or at least a country like Germany, without declaring some kind of special situation, special crisis, martial law, or something like that. They always will need some kind of crisis, and if they don't have one, they create one. So we will be kept in a continuous, a never-ending state of crisis, just so that they can rule. Yeah? And we are seeing this already now. And I told you that the China bug will not be the last thing, and then the Ukraine, and now Israel, and what. I mean, they need something every year. And next year, well, I'm just telling you, they will come up with something new, just so that they can go into even more debt, which means more interest payments, higher taxes, and basically, the end game is, of course, disowning all citizens. Let me know what you think about that. Servus, Kameraden.